If you look up the word econobox in the dictionary, you'll find it's defined as a car that's small and economical rather than large and stylish. So does that mean it can't be desirable? Well, let's find out by taking a closer look at the Suzuki Dzire. The Suzuki Dzire exists to make something economical even more affordable. It's based on the Suzuki Swift, and it was initially released in India to qualify for tax breaks that are given to vehicles that are less than 4 meters in length. Hence, this is an afterthought, and there's no denying that, especially with the previous generation that looks like a Suzuki Swift that grew an awkward trunk just to pass for a sedan. But thankfully, this one's different. Putting this next to the previous one is like looking at Beauty and the Beast. This sports a more fluidic design, and despite the high beltline and small greenhouse that makes it look bottom-heavy, I think they managed to pull it off pretty well. Its short length and tall height makes it look a little bit like a micro machine if you're old enough to know what that is. At the front, you get this huge grille which, like the Suzuki Swift, gives it a sporty flavor. Front clip doesn't only look good, but the bumper, hood, and windshield wipers are designed to lessen head and leg injuries in the event of a collision with a pedestrian. In terms of exterior kit, you really can't expect much at this price point. You get halogen headlamps in a multi-reflector housing and front fog lamps. Along the side, you get power folding side mirrors with repeaters, so you can tell that they didn't exactly deprive you of all the features just to get the price down. The Suzuki Dzire rolls on 15-inch wheels, which are wrapped in Apollo tires that are 65 series and 185 millimeters wide, which I think is pretty decent for this class. Moving on to the back, you'll find rear combination LED tail lamps and parking sensors, which again is proof that they didn't cut corners everywhere. Opening the trunk reveals 378 liters of cargo space, which is not too bad for its size, and this is significantly more than what you get in the Swift. But unlike the Swift, you won't be able to fold the rear seats down in case you need more space. That's due to the chassis bracings found behind the rear seats. Now let's check out the rest of the interior. Now, I was expecting this to be exactly the same as the Suzuki Swift, but this has a slightly different dashboard. The center air vents and the instrument cluster housing has a slightly more practical design. But similarly, it feels airy and spacious in here, despite its exterior dimensions. That alone goes a long way in making this a pleasant cabin to sit in. Sitting in tight spaces is never a treat, but it goes to show that sitting in a small car doesn't have to feel like you're sitting in an econobox. Comfort is also exceptional, and the front seats provide exceptional bolstering. You can quickly get past the fact that you're surrounded in hard plastics, which is expected at this price point, but yet it doesn't feel low rent or completely Spartan in here. In fact, you even get a flat-bottom steering wheel, and the needles on the instrument cluster face south to give it a sportier vibe. The infotainment, if you could call it that, comes in the form of this 7-inch touchscreen, which offers Bluetooth and a USB port, and not much else, but at least you get a touchscreen. A backup camera would have been nice, but I guess for a car this small, the parking sensors would suffice. In terms of storage and functionality, you get cup holders here and bottle holders on both doors. There's even space here to fit your phone. There's also a 12-volt socket and a USB port. Unfortunately, you do not get a center armrest, and storage here is rather limited. But at least ergonomics is good. Everything is laid out pretty well, and it's stupid simple to use. All the buttons and switches are made of plastic, but nothing feels like it's gonna fall apart. The AC is operated manually with knobs and buttons, and as far as I'm concerned, that is never a bad thing. One pleasant surprise is that you get a rear air vent, because some vehicles twice its price and twice its size don't even have that. Now, there may only be one air vent, but there are separate adjustments, so functionality is not compromised. Space back there is adequate, as there are inches to spare in terms of head and legroom, at least for someone who's less than 5'8". And again, you'll see that Suzuki didn't grab every opportunity to cut corners, because you still get seat pockets and a center armrest with cup holders. That's even more than what you get in the Suzuki Swift, which costs a little bit more. But let's see how this compares when we take it out on the road. Under the hood of the Suzuki Dzire, you get the K12M engine, which is the same as what you get in the Suzuki Swift. And it produces 82 horsepower and 113 Newton meters of torque. Now, this may share a lot of specs with the Suzuki Swift, but this has two main advantages. One, it's significantly lighter. And two, more importantly, it does not come with a CVT. Instead, this comes with what Suzuki call AGS, which stands for Auto Gear Shift. So essentially, this is a clutchless manual. So it's a 5-speed transmission that uses electro-hydraulic actuators in place of a shifter and a clutch. So what does it feel like to drive? Well, it doesn't take long to get used to because it really drives like a regular automatic. The main difference is the revs jump up a bit each time it upshifts because there's that slight delay for the gears to engage. But aside from that, it feels perfectly normal. But the best way to drive this is in manual mode. And Suzuki is one of few manufacturers who have their manual gear selector the proper way around, where it's move down to upshift and move up to downshift. You wouldn't want it any other way because that's just counterintuitive. Next, let's talk about the steering. And it's no surprise that this is very precise and responsive. The steering ratio is pretty quick. And I say it's no surprise because I've driven the Swift and I was expecting this to be the same. So when you package that together with this car's short wheelbase, it's actually very agile and fun to drive. And despite it being rather tall, there's hardly any body roll, so the center of gravity still feels pretty low. And despite this car being relatively small, you don't pay a penalty when it comes to comfort because the ride isn't jarring. It's actually quite comfortable for what this is. But the best part about having a small car is when it comes to fuel efficiency, because this can do 11 kilometers per liter in the city and you can go way over 20 kilometers per liter out on the highway. So that's pretty good. So like I said, it's no surprise that I'm impressed with this car because the Suzuki Swift was a very impressive car to drive. So this feels just like that, but you get the added benefit of getting everything there is to love about the Suzuki Swift in a lighter package without having to deal with a CVT drone. Now granted, the transmission of this isn't as responsive as a regular automatic, but when you put it in manual mode, problem solved. This is a lot of fun, and I could drive this on a daily basis. The Suzuki Dzire GL Plus with AGS can be yours for only 708,000 pesos, which goes to show that you can have something that's affordable and economical while still being desirable.